going. We'll see if it's sluggish on Father's Day morning. Oh my goodness, this thing takes forever. Usually it's like 10 seconds or less, but it feels like forever when you're waiting. There we go. There we go. Good morning. Happy Father's Day. Welcome to your early morning intuitive guidance. I have some reading today in honor of my father, who today we're going to have a cookout. So at some point I will be out there slaving over a grill, and we don't have a fancy one. We have charcoal. So probably wasn't the wisest idea to wear pink, but oh well, here we are. So, good morning, Barb. Welcome. Glad you're here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, um, I was just glancing through Decisive again, thinking, I wonder what might be a good nugget to share with you this morning, and came across something, excuse me, where the primary story is about the U.S. Navy. So I figured, good morning, Jonelle. Welcome. Glad you're here. You're up early after wedding festivities. Hope you had a wonderful time. Good morning, Mel. Glad you're here. Good morning. Good morning. So anyway, I figured on Father's Day, a Navy story is probably a good idea. But the point that it's going to make is about this odd penchant we have for not doing the things that are going to move us ahead on what we say are our goals. Okay. Oh, I'm glad it was lovely. Awesome, awesome. We'll have to chat. I like hearing about weddings. I like also, I'm one of those people who likes going out to dinner when it's prom or homecoming and look at all the pretty dresses, and yeah. And the park that Diane and I often sit in is a prime spot because it's right on the river. It's got beautiful trees around it. So many of them come there to get pictures taken. And so we've already seen so far this year, we've seen a wedding, and we saw a little bit of the prom dresses. So it's always just kind of fun to sit there and watch them in their miserably uncomfortable shoes and giggle as we sit there in our sensible shoes. Good morning, Gwen. Glad you're here. Welcome. So, before I share the little nuggets of gold that I have in the book picked out for us today, let's do a little tapping and some breath. Breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth. In through the nose, out through the mouth. One more, grounding through your feet and the base of your spine into Mother Earth. Breathe in. Hold. Let it go. Isn't that lovely? That exhale just feels so good. So I also have to tell you, was at a lovely little coffee house yesterday, and I'm seeing more and more of this kind of thing, especially in that area, which is interesting. Good morning, Barb. Welcome. Um, it's it's let me think of the word. It's located in an area called Vickery Village in Swamico, Wisconsin. If you've never been to Swamico, it's one of those don't blink, you'll miss it sites, but it's got this cool little pseudo downtown area where way back in the day, good morning, Nancy, welcome, glad you're here. Way back in the day, it was sort of this is too strong a word, but industrial area. Okay. So the fire department was there, and there was some more manufacturing sorts of things there. Well, now it's sort of been turned into little shops and amazing restaurants and this little coffee house. But the cool thing that was cool about it was the former fire department. They built up a new building very near. So they took it. Good morning, Abigail. Welcome. And they turned it into a coffee house. But now it has overhead doors that in the summer, which this is, can be put up. So everybody's sitting out on the patio with their dogs. I mean, there had to be, I don't know, a dozen or two dogs wandering around the place, greeting each other and being happy and all the things. And there was a little, they had a bunch of things going on. There was a baby shower, there was a wedding, and there was a little food truck style thing that was selling dog treats. So it was just very cool, very cool. But it was nice sitting there. And the thing that's also interesting about it is it's teacher owned. So, and there's a restaurant nearby, Rustique, which is one of my favorites in that area, that's also owned by former teachers. And I'm like, isn't this interesting how many teachers, either once they retire or when they decide teaching is an arduous profession at this point with the lack of support, there's my 2 cents, um, that they start something different. And yeah, this was a very cool little coffee house. So if you're ever in Swamico, check out the coffee house that's located in the fire department. So, Decisive, Chip and Dan Heath. For those of you who have the book, I'm going to share some of the stuff that's on page 187. And it's basically, I want to preface by talking about, it'll come to me. Boy, this morning, what the heckers? Okay, so I'm going to do my whole brain posture here because that helps get my brain firing on both sides and information I'm looking for can show up. So, there's a diagram. So think of it as a like an X, and that creates 4 quadrants, right? And the 4 quadrants, and his name will come to me shortly, I know it will. The 4 quadrants, the headings on each axis are urgent, not urgent, important, not important. And he makes the point that we spend far too much time in the quadrant that is urgent, not important. Phones ringing, emails dinging, text messages, all the things, people interrupting us with their crisis that really isn't our crisis, and very little time in the not urgent, important category. So I want to expand on that a little bit with this reading. The gist of it is those very important. There we go. Thank you, Gwen. Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Very good book. Jonil too. Yes, my people. Yay. Fabulous book. Fabulous book and amazing learning. So don't be afraid to go back, and you don't have to read the latest bestseller always. Sometimes there are nuggets like this book too. This is an older book, but the information in it is spot on. So the thing is, we are driven by what grabs our attention, right? Which is why we turn off all of our devices. You do turn off your devices from time to time, right? So that we can have an uninterrupted period of time to pay attention. The rule of thumb is every time you get interrupted, it takes you 20 minutes to get back on track. Think about that. Some of us, our entire day is one interruption strung after another. I am a fan of office doors. I am a fan of doors wherever necessary. Close them. Close them. Buy yourself some space. Buy yourself some space and time to do the things that you want to do and get done and have done well, rather than this mess you cobbled together in between interruptions. Okay. So that's a piece of it. The other piece of it, I think, and I'll read this in a moment, is many of us just live day to day. We just, let's see what the day throws at me. Well, what is the day going to throw at you? Interruptions, that category, that quadrant of not important, urgent. The doorbell rings, the mail gets dropped off, all the things that can wait, but they don't wait because they've grabbed our attention and we're off and running. So, how do we ever get to the stuff that's important but not urgent? Oftentimes, unfortunately, we wait until it's either too late or it becomes urgent. So, let me pick one. Your power of attorney for healthcare. Do you have it filled out? Do you wait until you've had an accident? You fall down the basement stairs with the laundry, and now you're there and you're not functional, but you haven't named who's the person who can decide things for you. That's not the time to decide at all. Okay. One of the ways that health systems have gotten around our tendency to not fill out that important stuff is when we have a small surgery of some kind, whatever it is. Let's say they fix your ingrown toenails. You have to fill out your power of attorney before they do all that shit. So they're going to get you. They're going to get you. But again, we don't want to wait, because the other thing about waiting is we don't necessarily have the conversations with the people we need to have the conversations with. Oh, I'll just name my daughter. And 6 months later, something untoward happens, and she goes, I have no idea what she wants. We never talked about it. I didn't even know I was named. Not cool, people. Not cool. We can do better. We can do better. So here's the part I want to read. And listen to the irony of some of this stuff. It's amazing, but also listen to the ingenuity of people involved. So, establishing priorities, because sometimes people do have their, okay, these are the top 5 things I want to accomplish in 2026. Establishing priorities is not the same thing as binding yourself to them, making that commitment and actually following through. In one series of interviews led by William F. Pounds of MIT, managers were asked to share the important problems they were facing in their organizations. Most managers mentioned 5 to 8 problems. Most of us can come up with, what did we put down for in January? Well, here we are in June. Let's check in with those January goals we set. Do you remember what they were? Yeah. Most managers mentioned 5 to 8 problems. Later in the interview, they were asked to describe their activities from the previous week. Pounds shared the punchline that no manager reported any activity that could be directly associated with the problems he or she had described. They'd done no work on their core priorities. Urgencies had crowded out priorities. So if some of you want to put something fun in the feed here, don't let urgencies crowd out your priorities. Don't let urgencies crowd out your priorities. That's the Stephen Covey stuff, right? Get yourself in the right quadrant. Parents experience this too. Quality time with your kids gets pushed out by last-minute errands and meal preparation. The problem with urgencies, the most vivid and immediate circumstances, will always hog your spotlight. But here's the other thing about that with raising children. What do? They're behaving, they're going along, everything's fine. We ignore them, we ignore them, we ignore them. We're making dinner, we're doing all the things, right? As soon as they're misbehaving, we pay attention. What have we just done? We reinforced misbehaving, which is why I spent time. Thank you, Gwen. I appreciate it. I spent time training parents how to pay attention to the good stuff and ignore what they didn't want. I mean, if it's dangerous, then you're going to intervene if they're running out into traffic. But if it's something that's, not that big a hairy deal, ignore the stuff you don't want. Pay attention to the stuff you do want. And it can become habitual, easier. So if your toddler's sitting on the floor by you in the kitchen as you're cutting up vegetables, comment on the things they're doing. Oh, you're picking up the blue block and you're putting it on the red block. And the kid throws a block. Ignore that. Then they pick up another block. Oh, you've got the green block. Ignore the stuff you don't want. Focus on the stuff you do want, right? Well, this is the same for us, whether we're talking our jobs or our home situation. Pay attention to what you do want. So he says, our calendars are the ultimate scoreboard for our priorities. If forensic analysts confiscated your calendar and email records and web browsing history for the past 6 months, what would they conclude are your core priorities? We worry that ours would include drinking coffee, playing Angry Birds, and carefully deleting junk email on an hourly basis. Yeah. What would they see if they looked at our history? What we're actually doing? To spend more time on our core priorities, which surely is our goal, necessarily means spending less time on other things. That's why Jim Collins, the author of Good to Great, which if you haven't read it is a very good book, suggests that we create a stop doing list. Here's a nugget of gold, folks. Here's a nugget of gold, a stop doing list. What sparked the idea was a challenge from one of his advisors to consider what he would do if he received 2 life-changing phone calls. The first call, he'd learned that he'd inherited 20 million, no strings attached. The second call would inform him that due to a rare and incurable disease, he had only 10 years left to live. The advisor asked Collins, "What would you do differently? And in particular, what would you stop doing?" Since that time, Collins says he's prepared a stop doing list every year. Think about that. Think about that. Your stop doing list. It's tempting but naive to pretend that we can make time for everything by multitasking or working more efficiently, but face it, there's not that much slack in your schedule. And if you're retired, there's even less slack in your schedule. That's when we bought our parents' cell phones. We could never find them. Where are you people? So that way we'd at least call them and say, "Where are you people?" An hour spent on one thing is an hour not spent on another. So if you've made a resolution to spend more time with your kids, or to take a college class, or to exercise more, then part of that resolution must be to decide what you're going to stop doing. So I will share one of mine. I have made the commitment to doing 1 hour of holosync every day. An hour of sitting there with headphones on, with going back and forth, stimulating different areas of my brain. That's an hour not doing other things. So what have I decided to get rid of? All kinds of stuff, including, unfortunately, clearing out emails. But they're out of control anyway. One of these days, I'm going to be that person who wipes out my entire email stack and starts over. There are people who do that. So make it concrete. Look over your schedule for the past week and ask yourself, what specifically would I have given up to carve out the extra 3 or 4 or 5 hours that I'll need? In organizations, especially, the stop doing list may require some upfront work. 10 hours spent now to forestall 30 hours spent later. So I love here's the story, the dad story for the day. This approach became a specialty of Captain D. Michael Abramshoff when he took over command of the USS Benfold, a guided missile destroyer commissioned in 1996 for duty in the United States Pacific Fleet. As recounted in his book, It's Your Ship, one of Captain Abrashoff's first moves was to interview every one of the 310 crew members on the ship. He learned their personal histories and their motivations for joining the Navy, and he sought out their opinions about the Benfold. What do you like most? What do you like least? What would you change if you could? Fabulous questions, right? You could do this in your family. What do you like most? What do you like least? What would you change if you could? Might be an interesting Father's Day discussion. Drawing from those conversations, he sorted all the jobs performed on the Benfold into 2 lists. List A contained the mission critical tasks, and list B contained the things that were important but not core. The dreary, repetitive stuff, such as chipping and painting. My dad talks about that. Not fun, hanging off the side of a Navy ship painting. After compiling the 2 lists, Captain Abrashoff declared war on List B. Perhaps the most dreaded task on List B was painting the ship. So he and his sailors hunted for ways to minimize the need for repainting. One sailor, brilliant individual, I'm sure this individual went on to be quite successful in life, suggested replacing the ship's ferrous metal bolts, which streaked rust down the side of the ship, ruining the paint job, with stainless steel bolts and nuts. The captain loved the idea, but his crew quickly hit a roadblock. The Navy supply system didn't stock stainless steel bolts. So, with the Admiral's permission, they cleaned out the bolt supplies of many Home Depot and Ace Hardware outlets across San Diego. Once the bolts were installed, a laborious process, can you imagine? Oy. The crew was able to wait a full year before the next paint job. The Navy has since adopted the stainless steel fasteners for every ship. Next, his sailors turned their attention to certain metal pieces on the upper parts of the ship, which tended to corrode, requiring scraping and sanding. They discovered a promising new process that might protect the metal from corrosion. It involved baking the metal and then flame spraying it with paint that inhibited rust. The process was already used within the Navy, but unfortunately, none of the Navy's facilities could handle even a fraction of what the Benfold crew required. So again, the crew improvised. I love this. Tracking down a steel finishing firm in San Diego that could do the whole job for $25,000. It was guaranteed to last for years. The sailors never touched a paintbrush again, said Captain Abershoff. With more time to learn their jobs, they began boosting readiness indicators all over the ship. Pruning the List B activities allowed the crew to spend more time enacting battle simulations and learning a wider range of skills. This investment in the crew's capabilities led to an unexpected triumph. At one point, the Benfold crew was scheduled for a standard 6-month training exercise required by the Navy. The sailors were so far ahead of the curve that they passed the final graduation challenge to the training exercise in the first week. In the process, they earned a higher score than any other ship, including those that ended up completing all 6 months. The Navy higher-ups couldn't bring themselves to call off the exercise completely for the Benfold crew, but they did reduce it from 6 months to 2 months, allowing the Benfold crew to train between port visits to Cabo San Lucas, San Francisco, and Victoria. I'd be happy to go to those places. That would be lovely. Later, the Benfold and its crew became a linchpin in U.S. efforts during the Persian Gulf War, tackling some of the toughest assignments and winning praise for their performance. Here's speaking to us. Every day, all of us struggle to stay off List B and get back to List A. Some of us don't even struggle. We're not even aware that we're doing this stuff, right? We need our List B spelled out. What am I not going to waste my time on, right? Or how am I going to batch that time? Like emails. Do you constantly have your emails open and you're in there? No, 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 no. I look at it once in the morning and then I look at it later, like lunchtime. And end of the day, I'm like, I'm off duty. I'm not doing this junk. So every day, all of us struggle to stay off List B and get back to List A. It's not easy. Remember the MIT study showing that over the course of a week, managers spent no time whatsoever on their core priorities. Peter Bregman, a productivity guru and blogger for the Harvard Business Review, recommends a simple trick for dodging this fate. He advises us to set a timer that goes off once every hour. And when it beeps, we should ask ourselves, am I doing what I most need to be doing right now? Okay, how many of you, if you're honest, put it in the feed. How many of you, if you're honest, you're going to be doing some stupid thing? I'll raise my hand. Absolutely. What am I distracted with? What am I distracted with? He calls this a productive interruption, one that reminds us of our priorities and aspirations. It spurs us to get back to List A. What we've seen in this section is that if we want our choices to honor our priorities, we need to attain some distance before deciding what we're going to be doing. With some distance, we can quiet short-term emotions, because what happens when something dings, that part of our brain gets fired off, the addictive part of our brain gets fired off. Yeah, you too. Join the crowd. And we're often running on whatever it is that's distracting us, right? We can quiet short-term emotions and look past the familiarity of the status quo. With some distance, we can surface the priorities, conflicts that underlie tough choices. With some distance, we can spot and stamp out lesser priorities that interfere with greater ones. You too. Yes, 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 yes. So just pick some of these little things that we can do. Make the list B. These are the things I ought not be doing. I ought not be wasting much of my time on, or I need to compartmentalize to get it under control. Looking at email is certainly one. Looking at email is certainly one, right? If you want to get something done, turn your phone off for an hour. Nobody will die in the interim. I'm pretty safe in promising you that. Using a timer to stay focused. I like doing a timer for a couple of reasons. One is I notoriously overestimate how long it's going to take me to do something. Oh my God, that's going to take at least an hour. And 40 minutes later, I'm done. I've just gained myself 20 minutes. What would I like to do on list A And again, this doesn't have to be all we're doing is working, working, working. Perhaps on list A is prioritizing staying in touch with family. So maybe you, in that 20 minutes, you make a phone call to some family member, or you send a card, you get a card. How many of you love getting cards in the mail because all we get is the things with the windows that want our money? Yeah, send a card. Timers can be helpful. Beat the clock. Play a little beat the clock, right? The woman who wrote Sync Reflections, Marla Silly, who helps people who struggle with mental health issues get their lives under control. If all else fails, go polish your sink. You'll have a nice clean sink. It'll be wonderful. Facebook is worth for you, Kathy. Worse for you. Yeah. Random scrolling with junk. And that's a variation of something we all used to do with TV. I'm just going to watch my half-hour program and then I'll get back to whatever. And then it's the next program and the next program and the next program. And pretty soon 2 hours is gone. And that wasn't what you intended to do, right? And how many of us do get to the end of the day and go, what did I accomplish? What did I actually do? And there's that meme that goes around that talks about all the things that grab our attention and we never finish up the thing that's previous. By the end of the day, the thing we started with still isn't done. So I call us all to action. I call us all to making our list B, the things that suck up our time, the things that derail us off of our priorities. If you don't have list A, what are your priorities for this year? Put them down now. Put them down now. Those of you who did the notorious New Year's resolutions, you can dig those buggers out because my guess is they're languishing at this point. Pick one of the tools that we talked about here. Even just creating the list B, I think, is a helpful tool. Excuse me. Mary Kay had something she called the 6 most important things list. And every day, I did this for quite some time. I'd make my 6 most important things, and that helped me stay. I wanted those all crossed off by the end of the day, so I had to fit them in somewhere. That was very helpful as well. So do a little 6 most important things list, or grab your list A and infuse it into your day somewhere. If you're one of the people who lays out, if you're retired and you're just hanging out and doing what you want to be doing, make sure there's list A stuff in there, whatever it is. Let's say you're planning to sell your big home and move to a smaller home, but you got to clean out a bunch of stuff. Start with a drawer, one drawer, do that. Don't worry about the rest of the house. Just do a drawer. It'll feel so good. It'll make it more likely you do more. So I'd love for you to put in the feed your favorite idea from what we talked about today. I'll go back, and I always go back and read them as I move through the days, because to me that's important. It helps me understand where you're coming from, what's most important to you. Given the number of comments on this stuff, this is important. So let's do it together. Let's link arms and see where we arrive. So tomorrow I am actually donating. It'll probably end up being, I don't have enough boxes. So she's actually bringing some boxes, boxes and boxes and boxes of books. I would say there's going to be at least a dozen boxes of books that are going to the AAUW book sale, which is in October, that the money from that helps send young women who don't have the means to college. So it's the Association for University Women. So all those books are going to be walking out the door. And what a good cause. What a good cause. So that's my tomorrow clearing. Already got that one lined up. But what that we learned today was most helpful for you. I like the list B idea. I think the list B idea is a cool idea. I also like the one of setting the timer to go off on the hour. And what am I doing? Am I doing something that leads me to where I want to get to? Or is it I'm derailed off in Facebook? There we go. Have an awesome day. Happy Father's Day to all of you who are celebrating. We'll be cooking out. Hopefully we don't end up calling the fire department. I can do better than that. We'll see you again tomorrow. Remember, you're capable of far more than you think you are. Bye-bye.